For documentation purposes, my name is Marty Hayes. I am the president of the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. We're here in Memphis, Tennessee at the Top Gun Academy, and we being Masad Ayub and I are teaching a MAG Deadly Force Instructor course, and the date is September 15th, 2023. The video, and I don't know how long this is going to take, I'm sitting because I tend to wander all over the place when I'm talking, so I nail myself to this chair. But anyway, what we're going to do today is talk about the post-self-defense incident legal help or defense or whatever you want to call it industry. This industry started back in 2008 after I completed law school in 2007. Took about 6-month break and then decided to push a button on the computer, file our papers, and become an entity, and I could start promoting the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. The concept behind it was that if one of us are involved in a self-defense incident, then the entity, the network, would come up and help them with their legal defense. When we started, we didn't have any money to speak of, but what I did is I told those fledgling members, most of them were my students, and so they had a small amount of trust in me anyway. Many of them were Massad's students, and so they had a lot more trust in him. And we had a bunch of John Farnham students and Tom Given students. Jimmy Soroa was also a colleague, and he unfortunately passed away before we could get the network going, but he was part of the formation of that. And we all decided this was a pretty darn good idea. You know what my goal was when we started this? About $5,000 in the legal defense fund so we could initiate the legal defense. So we'd have an attorney who you could call and go to the scene and help. You know, I don't know how much money we have in the legal defense fund now. Over $4 million. So it's been a pretty good run over the last 15 years. And how we raised that money was we decided on a set figure that we needed to run the network professionally. That means hiring people to do administrative work and answer phones and that kind of stuff. And so we decided on that, and then we decided we would take 20% of all the income that comes in and shunt it away into the legal defense fund. And I was really thrilled when we had $500,000 in the fund, because at that point, we can fund any of these cases, and so that was pretty cool, And then it just kept growing, and now we've got 22,000 members, or close to 22,000 members, and over $4 million in the legal defense fund. We formed the network's benefit package based on what I personally felt that we needed to help our students, and because I'm a gun-carrying dude too. And I've been involved in a bunch of legal trials over self-defense issues. And so I knew the type of defense that I wanted. I wanted a defense that had no upper limit money-wise. I wanted to be able to hire whomever lawyer I wanted. I wanted to be able to pay them probably $100,000 to $150,000, maybe $200,000, depending on the type of incident and trial it was, depending on how anti-gun the prosecutor was, that sort of thing. And you've seen these. The George Zimmerman case comes to mind, Kyle Rittenhouse case comes to mind, and we know that these cost a lot of money. But in addition to the attorney's fees, I wanted to know that we had money for investigators. It is paramount to have the attorney hire an investigator to do a full investigation of the incident, not rely upon the police investigation. Although as a former police officer, I am very proud of my industry, very, very proud of that profession, but sometimes the police get it wrong. And sometimes they do it because they're lazy, sometimes they do it just because they're overworked and they make mistakes. Sometimes they do it because they have a hidden agenda and they want to see armed citizens prosecuted. And so if they don't, if they do a thorough investigation, that's great. All we've done is affirmed their investigation. But if they don't, then we've got something to fight with. If you don't get your private investigator contacting the witnesses, that kind of thing, then that information is lost. We also wanted money to hire experts on the case. Experts can run anywhere from someone to do a shooting incident reconstruction, which is extremely important to be done because a lot of police are not trained investigators, or I should say, crime scene investigators. I don't use the word crime scene investigations much, but that's what the police do, is they run out and see, they're investigating a crime. And at least that's what's going on in their minds. And so, but some of them don't know what the hell they're doing. In many states, you can be hired as a police officer and never have any formal training. You're supposed to get the training sometime in the future by going through the once-a-year police academy, and so they don't know what they're doing. In fact, I was one of them when I first started. We had to have our investigators. You have to have experts, say for shooting incident reconstruction, experts in dynamics of violent encounters, to be able to explain why the shot in the back occurred primarily, or why the individual shot before he was in contact distance with the assailant, these sorts of things. You also need very expensive experts in the name of forensic pathologists to examine the work of the regular forensic pathologist, assuming they had an autopsy done. So this adds up. $20, $30, $40, $50,000 for a good investigation. And so that's how we set up the network, and we have continued that way since the beginning. Thankfully, we haven't had very many cases. We attribute that primarily to the educational package that we give to new members. It started out with 3 DVDs and a book by Masad Ayub. It is now up to 12 DVDs, a whole bunch of written literature, and Masad Ayub's Deadly Force book. And so that's what a member gets. If they're diligent and they read that stuff and study it and watch the videos and take notes, then they're one of the easiest people to defend, because all this documented evidence could come into court under certain circumstances. We've never had anyone prosecuted for a shooting. We've had a few people prosecuted for a he said, she said altercation. We've never had anybody prosecuted for a shooting. We've had 2 or 3 shootings, but they were all dismissed very quickly by the prosecution. And so, we're very proud of that record. There are some entities in this industry who boast that they have defended murder cases of their members, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I don't boast that because A, we haven't done it, but B, I don't want to defend any murder cases. We've got the money to do it, but I would rather our members not get involved in shootings. And if they can avoid it, that's great. We have a lot of information on how to avoid that. Okay, so that's pretty much what the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network does. We're not insurance, except the state of Washington has declared that we are and have fined us, and we're currently legally fighting that. We've gone through I won't even get to it. We're still fighting it. because we're not insurance, we don't believe in our insurance, but it's kind of tough to fight the government when they want to use all their resources against you. Most of the other entities in this field are insurance or have an insurance company backing them for their purported benefits. And I don't use that word negatively. That's just, they say that they're going to do things for you, and whether they do them or not is one thing. I've seen most of the cases where they will promise or they will fulfill their promises. I know at least one case where they dumped the person midstream in their legal defense, and it's my understanding that was because the insurance company backing them said they wouldn't back them anymore. The entities out there, because they are selling insurance, and it is illegal to insure an intentional act that harms or kills someone else, they will have a clawback or retention clause in the contract saying that if we forward, let's just use $1 million, if they spend $1 million on your legal defense and you are found guilty or plead guilty to any crime associated with that, they have the right to sue you to get their money back. And I believe most of the entities have that in the really small fine print of their contracts with you. So read the contracts carefully. Many of them limit themselves only to firearms related cases. If you shoot someone, they'll back you. If you point your gun at someone, they'll back you. But if you hit somebody over the head with a golf club, they won't back you. And maybe the assault occurred on a golf course, which is what happened to one of our members in Arizona. And we've defended him when the prosecution found that we had a credible lawyer willing to take this thing to court. It went away very quickly, and that was a win. But the network will back any case of self-defense as long as it was a legitimate case of self-defense. And who decides whether it's a legitimate case of self-defense are me, Assad, John Farnham, Tom Givens. All the members of our advisory board have a say in whether or not we're going to back a claim if it's not a clear-cut case. We've only had, I think, 1 or 2 times where we took the whole case to the advisory board to get a decision. But typically, usually, it's very easy to see if there is a legitimate case of self-defense. And the standards are fairly low. It's if the attorney that you've hired says that there is sufficient evidence to mount a self-defense case in court, then that's good enough for us. Because there's got to be some evidence to say that it was self-defense, so you can't take a self-defense claim into court. And so that's the bar that we use, pretty low. But in one case, we had a lady pulled a gun on someone else, the girlfriend of her ex-boyfriend, where she came to confront the ex-boyfriend. And it was a pretty mucky situation. Well, we went ahead and represented her to the point where we got a lawyer for her, and the lawyer looked at all the cases and calls out and says, "Marty, it ain't here. This is not self-defense." I says, "Okay, thank you very much. Keep the $10,000 and make sure you can get her the best outcome. But we won't be, giving you any more money to take this thing to court." And that's what they did. And that was unfortunate for her, but she didn't do the right thing. She let emotion cloud her decision making. And we've had a lot of other cases. I'm not going to dwell on all the different cases we've had. But I wanted to basically just take this time today to fully explain what the network does and what it isn't, and to discuss some of the pitfalls of these other entities out there promoting self-defense insurance. In many of these cases, they choose the attorney for you. You don't get to pick the attorney. They've figured out member attorneys, and they require you to use their attorney, which is a huge no for me. I want to be able to choose my own attorney. I want to be able to fire my own attorney and hire a new attorney, like we had in one case that we successfully defended. And so that was the big thing for me. I think that's about it for the discussion of who we are and other entities.